Good morning. I'm Professor Dick House. I am the director of the Charlie Steiner School of Sports Communication here at Bradley University. Welcome to the 7th annual Charlie Steiner Symposium on Sports Communication. We are so grateful to all of our guests who are joining us this year. Okay? All of our panelists, all of our audience members as well. Okay? An undertaking like this takes an amazing amount of work. So before we get started, there's a few people I would like to thank. In no particular order, so don't think the order matters, Dr. Paul Gollifer in the back there. Dr. Sitong Guo. Mr. Chris Marsh. Mr. Dave Lenny. Manning the camera. Dr. Corey Barker. Dean Ethan Ham. And the three that probably deserve the most credit, they're actually not in the room with us right now, but maybe they can watch us on YouTube later. Our administrative staff, Jamie Glinzinski, Miss Kim Talek, and Miss Abby McLean. We are very excited about the panels we have for you today. We are disappointed to say that our namesake, Charlie Steiner, could not be with us today, but he did film a brief video that we're going to watch right now.
Thank you, Josh, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to the 7th Symposium at the Steiner School. This is one of the highlights of my year. Of course, I have a special spot in my heart for the Steiner School. It's remarkable to me that it is indeed the 7th year. What's equally remarkable, but in a negative way, is that I can't be with you this week. I'm down with a bad back. I can't fly. I can't go anywhere. So this is the next best thing to being there. So I want to thank Josh and thank everybody that's involved. You know, one of the things when we began the school, these many years ago, I would always say, I'm not sure how I can get you a job. One of the things that we can do, and I think we do reasonably well, is teach storytelling, whether it's on the keyboard, whether it's in a studio, whether it's in front of a live mic. Those are things that we can do. Those are the things that will never change. What has changed is how we deliver that information from us to them. You know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, did anybody on earth know what NIL is? NIL? You know, that's another massive change. And now we've got the transfer portals. And now we have various ways to disseminate that information. Those are the things we're going to try and learn. One of the things that we can do, and what remains a constant, is the ability to tell a story. That will never change. So with that in mind, a couple of things just to give you an outline of what we can have to look forward to in the day ahead. The first thing I'm very excited about is that those who have come through the Steiner School and how they have advanced in their lives, in their careers, and that's just the beginning. And so I look forward to that, and Chris Marsh will be heading that panel in just a few minutes. And then we're talking about NIL and basically pay for play in college sports. Is that good for what we do? Isn't it? Again, a wonderful topic of discussion, and we'll talk about that next. After lunch, we'll talk about, again, things that have changed, how we deliver the information from us to them. And Josh Dickhouse has done just a wonderful job in putting the Steiner School together, the nuts and bolts, and Paul Gulliver and the rest of the staff. I am so happy they're a part of all of this. I am so unhappy that I can't be here today. And then finally, at the end of the day, we're going to talk about sports production. And so the information of how we get the information from us to them is changing because all of the events surrounding us are changing. But one thing that's constant is that we tell a story factually, honestly, concisely, and with your own unique perspective on what it is. Again, whether it's editing or broadcasting or simply writing a story, telling a story is the key. And with that, I have told enough of a story this morning, and let the 7th annual Steiner Symposium begin. I send it back to Josh, and wait till next year. I will see you guys next year.
Okay. That being said, we are going to start our 9 a.m. panel. It was one of the most difficult to select. It is my sincerest hope that one day each of you sits on this panel as a graduate of our sports communication program. These are some of our absolute best and brightest. And speaking of which, best and bright, let me introduce Mr. Chris Marsh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
That was spectacular. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marsh, and I am privileged to be an instructor, a teacher in the greatest department of communication in the world. And what we have in front of you now is a panel that is almost 10 years in the making of some of the greatest storytellers in the world. So beginning at your far left, Megan Gorecki is a 2015 graduate of Bradley University. She is the senior social media manager with the LA Sparks, with previous stops with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Big Ten Network, and Major League Baseball. Next to Megan, yes, so it's the Joe Spatansky is a 2022 graduate of Bradley University. He is a ticket office graduate assistant in the Kent State University Athletics Department. Since arriving at Kent, Joe has been directly responsible for game day operations of 8 ticketed NCAA Division I sports, planning and executing 5 Mid-American Conference championships, and playing a key role in the integration of a new ticketing system. That's Joe Spatansky. Next to Joe, also a 22 graduate, Nicole Pfaff. She is in her second year in the Masters of Arts program in communication as a graduate student at Clemson University with a focus on sport and strategic communication. Nicole is also a public speaking graduate teaching assistant for Clemson, as well as a graduate research fellow for the sports communication faculty with the Brooks Sports Science Institute. Please welcome Nicole Pfaff. Come on in. We've got a wonderful table for you reserved over here in the front. Next to Nicole, Aaron Freeman is a 2016 graduate. He is entering his 6th season with the Minnesota Timberwolves, second as senior manager of basketball communications and broadcast, where he serves as the department's primary contact with sports broadcast partners as the head coach's media liaison for all interviews, team's media relations experiences, media pitching, and the team's publications, while additionally serving as a secondary contact for the team, assisting the department in its day-to-day basketball communication operations. That's Aaron Freeman. finally, on your far right, Hernan Gutierrez is a 2021 graduate of Bradley University. He is a morning news reporter for WISH-TV in Indianapolis, Indiana. He is, as I said before, a 2021 graduate of the Steiner School of Sports Communication. He has nearly 6 years of experience in broadcast news, half of which was gained while attending Bradley, working behind the scenes at WEEK-TV in East Peoria. This is your panel of Steiner alums. I would also be remiss if I did not welcome this morning our Knights and our Rockets. It's wonderful to have you here. Welcome to Bradley University and the Steiner School of Sports Communication. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, yes, thank you. We'll start off with some questions for the panelists. They'll go through. We'll kind of randomly ask them for answers and so forth. And then if time remains, we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience. So panelists, if you would, and we'll start with Megan and just work our way this way. If you would, please take us through kind of the highlights, the decision points that you've had in your career. The starting line is Bradley University graduation. The finish line is where you are right here. Megan, how'd you get there?
It's a long journey. So I graduated in December 2015. I had a few months of unemployment and then got my first job at MLB. So I worked as an associate social media coordinator. There I worked with MLB as their main liaison between the teams and the league accounts. I knew I wanted to work in social, so I was just trying to work my way up. So I had a season there, and then I got the opportunity to come back closer to home. So I worked for the Big Ten Network, and I was there for 4 years. So I helped run a new program they had, which is similar to kind of like the LCC program the NFL has now. So we had 14 videographers at every Big Ten school, and I was their content coordinator, so I would help manage all of the people at each school. They would send back footage, and I would send it all out on all our channels. So I ran 14 Twitter accounts, Instagram, Facebook, everything across the board. So I did that for 4 years, and I really loved it. And then I really wanted the opportunity to work on the team side. So I got the opportunity and applied for a job with the Milwaukee Bucks. And there I was social media manager. I actually joined at a really good time. It was during the Eastern Conference Finals in 2021. So in 3.5 weeks, I got an NBA championship, which was great. And then getting to cover that whole championship run was awesome, and then the years prior. And then probably the hardest decision was deciding to leave the Bucks and kind of go to the other side. So I'm 8 months into the job now, but I work for the LA Sparks. So I get to be the W side of things, a little less games, but a lot more opportunity there. As we all see, women's sports is growing a ton. So really excited to be a part of it. It's a quick overview.
All right. Joe, what are you up to and how'd you get there?
Alrighty, so not as long of a journey. I graduated in May of 22. After I graduated, I had the opportunity to go out to Kent State to be a graduate assistant in their ticket office. That was a connection that I made through Bradley. My boss, whenever I was working in the athletics department, had just come from Kent State. He got me connected with a couple folks out over there. We saw that it was a match, and then I kind of went out there, and it was a department that in ticketing it was just me and my boss, and now I've kind of had the opportunity to build up our student working corps, as well as we brought in another graduate assistant and another full-time staff on the group sales end. And from then, it's just been grinding through all of the sports that we have. We have 8 ticketed sports that we'll go through. I directly oversee 6. And then with this last year, I've had an opportunity to kind of take over operations for the men and football end of things. So, outside of that, just also working within the academics realm. I'm kind of associated with the NFL draft trip that Kent State kind of puts on, just trying to make sure that I have something planned out, and also trying to integrate Bradley University in that future. And then right now I've kind of been lucky enough to accept a job opportunity with the St. Louis Cardinals. So whenever I graduate out in May, I will be going right back home, and then I start at the end of May. So just starting to get my journey going.
Nicole, yes.
Okay, so like Joe, I graduated in May 2022, so only 2 years out. I'm gonna kind of take it a couple months before graduation when I was deciding to go to grad school. I had either the journalism route or the communications academia route, and ultimately after sitting down with Doc D, being like, what do I do? Ended up choosing the communication academia route just because it served a lot more diversity for me personally. So once I graduated, I went back home, did my usual summer job, and then moved to South Carolina, which is much warmer than here right now. But yeah, so I went there. As Marsh mentioned, I'm a graduate teaching assistant. I teach a lab of public speaking. So all of y'all that do public speaking and speeches, go to class, do your speeches, do the best you can. And then on top of that, I'm also a graduate research fellow for the Brooks Sports Science Institute. I mostly just assist the sport comm faculty in their research. There hasn't been too much going on that I can really talk about. I know last year I spent most of my fellowship working on a research paper that I started in a sport comm lecture and ended up presenting to the National Communication Association conference this past fall in National Harbor. Essentially that research followed the discourse from Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it now, on Tua Tagovailoa's injury and what all that entailed, especially for the health sort of department in sport, the health sport world. So that was really cool to be able to do and kind of like think up and come from my brain. But now we're here. I took my comprehensive exams, which is like super intensive last week. So I'm here mentally, not here, but we're making it through. I defend next week, and then once I pass that, on to graduation and wherever the wind takes me, because I'm still in my job app era, I guess.
Aaron, what are you doing these days?
Well, first off, thank you to Chris, Dr. Gulliver, Dr. Dickhouse for having me here. I currently am the senior manager of basketball communications and broadcast with the Minnesota Timberwolves, making it easy. I do PR for the Timberwolves. Graduated in 2016 on a Saturday, packed my things in my car and moved to Minneapolis for an internship the next day. I started out as a game day intern for the Minnesota Lynx on our WNBA team that we have in Minnesota. Ended up getting a position as an associate with the Timberwolves for the 16-17 season. Was planning on doing that for the 2017 Lynx season because it was like you get to do both teams in the program that we had. But 2 weeks before that season started, my boss at the time put in her 2 weeks. So kind of got thrown into the fire right away, a year out of college, which was pretty wild. And ended up that year, we won the championship. And so having to do two jobs and getting thrown into the fire right away was a pretty eye-opening experience, but one that has kind of set everything up for me. 4 years later with the Lynx, my last season with them was the 2020 WNBA bubble, which was in Bradenton, Florida. So spent almost 90 days in a sports bubble, which getting tested for COVID every day was quite a scene. And then now for the last 3-4 years, just on our Timberwolves side, I work every game, travel with the team, do PR for them, and it's honestly some of the most fun. Getting paid to watch basketball is quite a gig. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to.
Renan, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the journey back to 2018 real quick. I was hanging out down the road at 618 Duria, and I was hanging out with some of my fraternity brothers, and one of the friends of the fraternity worked at WEK in East Peoria. So I told her, hey, CJ, you should get me a job, and she did. I was kind of joking, and I kind of just went from there. I worked there for 3 years, and originally accepted a full-time job there as a director upon graduating. So I started I think 2 days after I graduated was my first newscast there. So I got most of my experience behind the scenes, but I knew that I always wanted to be a reporter. And I got an opportunity to intern with the Olympics in 2020, but that got canceled, and it was kind of the reason that I came to Bradley, is to have that opportunity. So like 3 weeks after I took my first full-time job after graduation, the Olympics comes back, or NBC comes back and says, hey, we still need more people, would you like to come? And it was, I couldn't say no. When NBC Sports comes knocking at your door, you kind of have to take it. So I had to tell my boss, like, hey, I know I just took this full-time job 3 weeks ago, but I need to quit, sorry. And so I did that, and when I came back, they basically said, sorry, we can't guarantee you to have a full-time job. So I took that as an opportunity to get all of my resume and reel tape together, and started shooting out my resume tape to stations, small news stations across the Midwest. And I ended up landing in Davenport, Iowa, so pretty close to Peoria. I spent 2 years there reporting on everything from weird, like, memorial dedications to a building collapsing to lots of city and town hall meetings and a lot of politics. Now, once my contract was up there, I was offered a job in Indianapolis, where I'm at now, and I do the morning show. So I do a lot of more fun, lighter things. I get to talk about events. The NBA All-Star Game was probably the highlight of the past couple months so far. So, yeah.
All right. So I'm a fan of pop quizzes. Well, you all know I'm a fan of pop quizzes. For this pop quiz, you all could just tell me to go, pound sand. You don't have to answer these questions. But here's the question, and Nicole, I'm going to ask you this one first. So within this panel, each and every one of you are just, whether you're 2 years out or 9 years out, you are absolutely blazing a Hall of Fame career. What are the 3 most important qualities that you need to possess or develop to be successful in your industry?
Okay, that's a really good question. So in grad school, I would say one of the top things, because I can't really speak to industry since I haven't been in it quite yet, but for grad school specifically, I would say critical thinking is really important to have. It's really important to be able, I know critical thinking, when you hear that, you're like, I don't want to critique people, I don't want to be like negative, but critical thinking is really important in any aspect, really, into like just approaching anything, even if, I know it's like attached to research, but I promise you, critical thinking in any aspect, it's transferable to anything. So I'd say critical thinking. Another thing I would say is be open-minded. I know that's kind of cheesy to say, but things change. Sometimes you're gonna find something that you like a little better. I went into Clemson thinking I was gonna research women in sports. But then turns out I really liked the social media realm and ended up in like the health sport kind of era. So be open to change and be open to moving around a little bit. And then I would say the last one would be to think about yourself. Put yourself first sometimes. I know that's kind of like not really one, I guess. I don't know if that's a good answer to that, but I would say putting yourself first, because especially in grad school, you're like, go, go, go. Your mind is always reeling. I was going to bed thinking about all of the readings that I would read throughout the week. There's like, I think I read like 600, 800 pages in a semester once. I read a whole textbook for my exam in like 2 months. So I was like reeling with all of those readings. So it's really important that you take some time for yourself, because if you don't, then you're not going to be helpful for whoever you're working for or wherever you may end up in terms of grad school.
Thank you. Aaron, I'm tapping you next.
3 qualities.
3 qualities most essential to being successful in your position.
First off, relationship building. Like for me, the absolute foundation for everything that I do, starts with the relationships that I made when I first started. whether it's with media members, players, coaches, executives that we work with. It literally is the foundation for everything, to pitch stories, to when there are crises going on, you can lean on these relationships that you make. Yes, it's super important to learn everything at Bradley and go to class and all that. But at the same time, it's absolutely about who you know and how you get started in the industry. I would also say confidence is another huge quality. Whether or not you know what you're doing, you act like you know what you're doing, people will totally be like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. So the confidence aspect is huge. One last one I would say is probably just be a good person. I think that's huge. The NBA and professional sports, it's sometimes can get really intense, and I would say be a good person / don't take yourself too seriously. That's a big one. It can be a real grind. It could be super intense. You're doing things at the highest level for everything that I do and what we do. But if you're a good person, you don't take yourself too seriously, and you're having fun. Like I mentioned at the beginning when I first introduced myself, I literally get paid to watch basketball. So it is, yes, it's intense and it's serious, but at the same time, like being a good person and not taking yourself too seriously, I think helps you along the way.
Thank you. Megan, what do you think?
I would say problem solving is a big one for me. So social media, obviously there's so many things that can go wrong. So thinking about like everything that comes your way, especially during a game day, like when I'm looking for interns or people below me, I'm just looking at like, can you try and solve a problem without asking me first? Like, I would love for you to be able to like try a few things and be like, none of these things worked. What can I do? How can I help? Then come to me. So like for me, I need you to be like a self-starter, trying to figure things out as you go. So I think that's a big one for me. I would also say being flexible. I always like say social is like controlled chaos. You don't know what's gonna happen in these 4 quarters. Like, there's gonna be a game, start, a finish, and end, but you don't know what's gonna happen in there. So you have to be prepared for anything. So just being able to like, nothing's gonna go according to plan. You could plan as much as you can, have a strategy, but it's not gonna go that way. Things are always gonna come up. So again, goes in line with the problem solving, but also just like, it's okay. Things are not gonna go that way, but how do you react and like have a quick, clear memory to like keep it moving? What else would I say? I would say also just thinking about your word choices. I think that's big for me. So not only how you present yourself in meetings and like not only like your tone and how you're speaking to other people, but also like your tone online. So whenever I'm like sending out a tweet or thinking about it, like what runs through my brain is like, how is this going to be perceived? Like this is how I want the message to go out, but how is this being perceived by everyone else? How is it being perceived by Sparks fans? How is it being perceived by LA? All of those things. So just thinking about, I know it's a lot to think about before you send a tweet, but it's also really important because you want to be intentional. So, yeah.
Thank you. Bernard.
I would say the first one as a reporter is to know how to be the right kind of annoying, which is kind of funny. And Aaron, you probably work with reporters more on the PR side of things, but sometimes you just kind of have to know how to bug people in order to get what you want, but without being too annoying, especially if you work like politics or that kind of story. You need to get the answer and you need to tell them, hey, follow up almost every hour, telling them if you don't respond by 5, you're not going to get a comment in the story, sorry. Or on the morning side of things where I'm at now, telling people, hey, our first live shot's at 6, could you be there at 5:30 in the morning, sorry. Just to be able to tell the right stories. The second one is kind of like what Megan said, is to be flexible. Some days you're going to be running on like 4 hours of sleep. Other days you might not be running on any sleep and just caffeine and Casey's breakfast pizza. So it is kind of a whirlwind especially when you work mornings or nights. And then the last one, kind of like what Aaron said, is to not make it about yourself. But as a journalist, you're there to inform the public, whether it's something as serious like politics or something a little bit more laid back like Comic-Con that's going on in Indy this weekend. You're there to kind of help people get their word out and help your area be informed.
Thank you. Joe, bring us home.
Awesome. So in the realm of both graduate school and being in the ticket office, a couple of things that really stick out for us is being able to be flexible. It's something that's kind of been preached up here, but within there was a time that at the end of our basketball season last year, our entire ticketing system went down the day of our second biggest game of the year and stayed down throughout the week for our biggest game of the year. So that was something that we had to figure out, all right, what are we going to do in this situation? We have folks that have tickets who are supposed to be allocated to them, and we can't pull that information, and their tickets aren't going to scan, so what do we do? So we had to run off like 6,000 fake tickets. We had to hand cut all of those. I had to categorize the 2,300 names onto a spreadsheet, and then at all of our entry doors, we had a 99-page like pamphlet that sat on there. We would check them all off, make sure they got in, and that was a game that we were able to sell out with one of the biggest crowds I think that we've had in that arena. Also, I think another good thing would be consistency, being able to know that, hey, I'm not going to half-ass something. I'm sorry about that. I thought the whole time I need to make sure I don't, but just make sure you don't do something with half effort. Make sure that you're going through and staying true to yourself, to your goals, and to the level of work that you know that you can provide. And then the last thing would be communication. It's being able to communicate with yourself. All right, I'm stressed out. What do I need to do to calm myself down, as well as communicating that out to your professors or your supervisors or anybody else that you're working with. How am I able to, if there's something wrong here, how can I communicate that to my boss? How can I communicate that to our working staff, as well as how am I able to communicate that with all of the individuals coming in through like fans ticketing wise? So I would say those would be my big three.
Thank you. And actually, staying with that, leading to the next question. What would each one of you say, and Joe, if you would start, what would each one of you say is the most challenging part of your position?
I think the most challenging part of my position within the tickets office is trying to not get overwhelmed. Because in our department, there's right now just 4 individuals and 3 now because one of our folks is going a different direction. But it's hard to not get overwhelmed with everything that we have going on within our like program, our area. We have 8 ticketed sports that we have to look out for, and that's not including the other sports that if they say win a conference championship, we end up hosting that, and then we would have to ticket a new sport that isn't traditionally ticketed. So I think last couple weeks has been, I think we had 17 events within a 10-day span, a lot of doubleheaders, a lot of stuff going on. We had high school playoffs, we had the end of our basketball season, and then traveling out to Cleveland to work both the men's and women's final tournaments. So it's just making sure that you kind of stay with yourself. It's like, okay, I know I'm stressed out. What can I do right now to make sure that I kind of calm myself down? How can I relax? How can I decompress?
Awesome. Hernan, what is the most challenging?
Waking up at 2:30 in the morning. Just being able to be flexible and work with 5 different sources for 5 different stories, sometimes even more if you're planning the week ahead, just being able to stay organized besides waking up at 2:30 in the morning.
Thank you. Aaron?
I would say 2 things. I'm going to go against your one that you requested. I would say one is everyone wants the information. We work in such a high profile work environment that everyone wants to know everything, and there are times when not everyone can know everything for a variety of reasons. So again, leaning back on the relationship part of it and understanding when you can give information and what type of information you can give is another one. And then I would say the other one would be a big challenge is the ever-changing landscape of sports, and in particular, and kind of my newer role of overseeing our broadcast relationships is the ever-changing landscape of regional sports television is fascinating to me, and that is a huge challenge that to make sure all of our fans can watch our team, how they can do that, and how that looks is a big challenge right now and into the future too.
Thank you. Nicole.
Okay, so I'd have to say that the most difficult would have to be juggling 2 jobs on top of being a full-time student. I mean, sometimes I know I split my time between being a GTA and a fellow 20 hours a week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you take GTA, you're grading students, you're grading speeches, you're preparing for the next class, making sure that everybody is getting their stuff in on time, on top of reading several academic articles a week. And sometimes you're not even going to understand what half those articles mean because you'll have to reread and be like, what are they saying here? Critically thinking about each of them. On top of that, reading articles for my fellowship and trying to make sure that I understand it completely to be like, okay, when I go to the meeting, I know what these people said, I know that what these scholars said, and here's what we need to apply, or here are some key points that we should probably pinpoint in whatever research we're looking at. I also have done like coding, and so that's also an extra added like several hours on top of that, coding Twitter analytics, coding videos that I've had to watch for children's hockey. So kind of like all of that piling on top of it, it can be pretty difficult to manage the time and know what to prioritize. So I definitely think that that would probably be like the most difficult thing.
Thank you. Megan?
So I work in social, so obviously it's a very 24/7 job. And both at the Bucks and the Sparks, I was the only full-time social media manager. So there's no one else to do your job, really. So you're constantly on or thinking about it, or you're doing nights, you're doing weekends, even in the off season, you're thinking about what content can we do. I think that's been a big obstacle or challenge for me with the W season being 6 months on, 6 months off. It's like, oh, you have 6 months to fill content without any single like players usually around, like just trying to think of things. So just the constant nature of everything changing and like still trying to stay like top of mind and at the forefront, you're like constantly thinking about content. So that makes it hard to have balance, but we're working on it.
All right, thank you. Staying with you, Megan,
Yeah.
what is your favorite, most rewarding part of your position, of your job?
I think Aaron talked about it as well, like just getting paid to watch basketball, I think is so fun. I never thought that like this is where I'd be, but really happy to be here. And then I would say like on the W side specifically, like I'm really excited to be a part of like this women's sports movement and this next iteration, being close with all the players and like working with them day to day. Like you see how incredible they are and working towards something really great. And I just want to like give them the best platform and do what I can to help them like thrive. I just feel like they obviously do not get the same kind of run that like the NBA side gets. So what can I do to help elevate them, get them paid, get better opportunities for them? So I think that's the most rewarding for me at this point, is just trying to elevate these women who work just as hard at their level.
Awesome. Hernan, I've got to ask, what makes you leap out of bed at 2:30 in the morning? Yeah, I can't wait to do this.
At the end of the day, my job is just to talk to people. So, you know, as communication students, I feel like a lot of us are all pretty social. So I just get to wake up and, you know, prepare graphics and then talk to people about Comic-Con or the NBA All-Star Game or whatever's going on in Indianapolis. So that's definitely the most rewarding and most fun part of my job. It is very easy to get caught up in, you know, complaining about management or complaining about the hours. But again, at the end of the day, you're just kind of being paid to socialize, and I think that's great.
Cool, thank you. Nicole.
So I would have to say, I'll do like 2 kind of little ones. So from a GTA standpoint, I really love it when I see students just improve as the semester goes on. And I'm sure like the professors in here probably would also agree, just seeing their students slowly become like more into themselves and finding themselves throughout the class. And even though it is like a public speaking course, which I know even as a student, I didn't like taking public speaking either, but just seeing them become more comfortable and finding their like interpersonal communication and seeing them grow as people has been really rewarding. And then from like a more like research side, I personally am not interested in going further into academia with a PhD, but it's really cool to be able to dive into that sector because in the end, it will be really important and intuitive, and I feel like it'll bring a different aspect to whatever industry I end up in or whatever organization I end up in post-grad. So I think being able to take in those different and new skill sets has been really rewarding, and I really am so excited to apply that to a future industry.
Thank you very much. Aaron, something you love about your job not involving watching basketball.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really do think I have the coolest job in the world. I have no problem screaming that from wherever I need to do that from. But I keep harping on it, and I really, it's genuinely the most rewarding part of what I do. It's the relationships that I have, not only with like my colleagues and the people that I work with on our business side, but the relationships that I have with some of the best athletes in the world, whether it's my first 4 years working on the women's side, having great working relationships with some of the best not only female athletes but just athletes in the world, Hall of Famers, and now on the NBA side, having great relationships with some of the best players in the NBA. On our Timberwolves side, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns are some of the most exciting players in the league, and so it's a pretty fun, and our coaches too. It's a really fun environment. So having those relationships is genuinely the most fun thing, because you just never know when you're going to need to lean on those, and I always seem to be able to lean on those, so it's great.
Thank you. Joe.
So I would say that probably the most rewarding thing that I get out of working within tickets is at the end of an event. So we'll ticket until approximately halftime or halftime within like a certain sporting event. So I think the most rewarding thing for me at least is being able to take myself out of that situation whenever everything's said and done, attendance has been reported and money's been counted and all that, is going in, seeing that the folks that I've had conversations with yesterday about buying group tickets or season ticket holders that I have like a personal connection with inside that stand, inside that stadium, just having a good time. And I think like last week, for example, it was a just grueling week going through the championship tournaments for the men's and for the women. Our last day, we got back to the hotel like around 8:30ish, and then we sent out tickets until like around 3. I got to bed at like 3:45, waking up at like 7:30 the next morning to send out the rest of the tickets for both events the next day. And just after we were all said and done, I got to go in, watch the end of the women's game, and then seeing both the fans that we had all come out, the individuals that I sent those tickets out to, and then being able to see them have a good time, and then the women being able to clinch their first championship since I believe 2002, and then being able to go on the court, and I was lucky enough that they let me go up and cut off a piece of the net. So it's just one of those things that just being able to see the impact that we have on getting people into the event, as well as just seeing the success of our teams itself.
Awesome. Okay, so that was the warm-up round. Those were the easy questions. For the next one, and keep in mind that you do have some former old professors, here in attendance, and some, administrators and so forth. So I'd like to start with Hernan, and we'll just work our way in that direction. Is there a particular experience or internship or class that you had here at Bradley that you still think back on that helps you today in where you are now with your career?
I might go off there. Not I do this for a living and I can't keep that on now. That's awkward. All right. I think the most rewarding thing was doing the Hollywood semester. Being able to be out there and kind of be surrounded by people who are all trying to do the same thing was really cool. And I grew up in the Midwest, and don't get me wrong, I like it here, but I think all of us that grew up here know it's kind of boring sometimes. And being able to be in a different part of the United States, just being around a different culture within the United States is probably one of the most rewarding experiences, being able to be around all of that.
Cool. Thank you. Aaron.
I don't think there was like one experience here for me. I always say I felt like I got the juice of every part of what Bradley has to offer. I was able to write for the Scout. I was able to work for Braves Vision. I worked in our SID office here at Bradley in the athletic department. And so I felt like all of those experiences all together helped me to where I am now. Like genuinely set the foundation for my experiences, whether it was, working towards getting an internship out of school and getting a job, and then all of my experiences helping me once I did get there. So I don't think it was one particular experience for me, but a collective of everything I was able to do here.
Thank you. Nicole.
Okay, so I'll be honest, the two classes that would probably have been a lot more helpful than I originally thought about are two classes that I personally did not take as seriously as I should have. And then I got to grad school and I'm like, those were actually really helpful. And I did end up going back on my notes. I still have those notes in my computer to this day, to which I don't know why, but I do. So it would be, I'm trying to rack my brain on what it was called, but I think it was COM 300 with theories. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I couldn't remember the name of the class, but I do remember communication methods, because that was one that I was struggle busting through. And I was also online while everybody was here in person, so I was just like, I totally know what I'm doing. And then I get to grad school at Clemson, and they're like, you need to know how to do these things. And everybody else had a more research background, and already like they had their theses from undergrad. I was like, I didn't take this class as seriously as I thought I would. Because I also didn't know I would be going into grad school that was research intensive. So definitely, had I known at the time, I think I would have found those classes a lot more helpful than I originally thought it would be.
Thank you. Joe.
So I think my most kind of rewarding thing out of coming out of Bradley were the two student jobs that I worked in my senior year. I had the opportunity to work with Dave Lenny out in the production office. So kind of the bonds that I was able to make out there, that's a spot with the individuals that I got to work with are some of my closest friends, and I still talk to them to this day, as well as working in the athletics department. Working in the athletics department is the reason I went to Kent State. My advisor out there, TJ Christie, just came from Kent State, and we were leaving the office one day, and he kind of looks at me. He's like, "So, what do you think about going to the draft?" It's like, "Sure." It was the 22 draft in Vegas. My now advisor out at Kent had asked him if I would love to go out there and kind of gauge interest out there, see if they liked me, see if I liked them, and pretty much since then that's given me the opportunity to go out to Kent State, learn in the field, and learn how to make connections, how to sell tickets for events that aren't usually that great. But it's kind of just given me that opportunity to grow in a way that I never would have been able to assume.
I would say Hollywood semester as well. So I was out there for 6 months, and I worked for a radio station for 2 days a week, early mornings, which was not fun, but that was an interesting time. And then I also worked with actually a former Bradley grad, AJ Curry. She was working at a digital marketing agency out there, and so that was kind of like my first foray into social. So I was working for this digital marketing agency, and I was running like athletes' websites. So I was like updating it with like new news and like things like that. And I think that was kind of like what planted the seed of like, oh, I can actually do this and get paid to do this. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Staying at that end, if you would. So looking at this audience, at students who, and I'm thrilled, I'm going to get to see you all next year here on campus, so cool. But students also who are in classes looking at your career saying, I want to do that, I want to be like these people. What would you tell them to start working on now? What are those experiences that you would tell them to open themselves up to now, either whether they're high school students, undergrad students, what would your advice be?
Yeah, so I would say now, compared to 2015, 2016, social media is very different. It's a lot more competitive now, but to me, I would say like you just need experience. That's what people are looking for at the end of the day. So it doesn't have to be sports. It can be anything, but just like running an account, showing that like you've had growth over a certain period of time. People really like to see stats and how much growth you've done, what the engagement rate is, all of like the analytics side of social. So I would say just like proving that you can build a platform and build a community somewhere is big. So you can do that personally, you can do it professionally. I think there's a lot of avenues you can go. I think you're seeing the industry now even go more like brands and teams are hiring like content creators. So they're kind of like the face of their brand on TikTok. So that's like a great opportunity for you, and like just putting up your phone and start making these videos. And I think you see that a lot. So yeah, just curating your social strategy that way, I think personally helps a lot.
Awesome.
I would say relationship building and just staying true to the work that you put out there, because at the end of the day, you never know who is going to have that opportunity for you, for like who knows somebody who's hiring for a position that you want. So it's something that if you just continue to build those relationships, just make friends, you have a conversation with somebody that and that you may or may not know, and just like continue to build on that, as well as staying true to the values that you have within like a work environment, not doing something with half effort, just making sure that you put out the best product that you can, and not just getting something done to get it done. Because at the end of the day, that your work represents who you are and represents where you want to go. And if you're putting out stuff that you just didn't put your full effort into, that's what people are going to associate with you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, so I'm going to do two little ones. So I'm going to do a research one and then a more industry route one. So for research, if you're interested in research, academia, in that sort of realm, I would fully recommend. I know that our department is more like storytelling, kind of like what Charlie was talking about. So definitely try all of your journalistic writing. That stuff, super cool, super amazing, very helpful. That's helped me. But definitely contact your professors. It doesn't even have to be like a communication professor. It can be any professor on campus, wherever your heart desires. Contact them, be like, hey, I'm interested in research. Can I get in on a research project that you might be doing? Can I help you in some research area? There isn't like a specific like research assistant or fellowship, but give yourself that title. Give yourself the title of being a research assistant, research fellow, by reaching out and contacting and offering your assistance. Obviously, it'll be free, unfortunately, but that experience will really help you in the long run when it comes to research and academia. In terms of industry, definitely, I'm sure we're going to hear it throughout this panel, but get involved. Do as much as you can, are able to handle. Definitely, Braves Vision was probably like my pride and joy being a part of that. I was so proud of being a part of Braves Vision. Even though I didn't go in the broadcasting realm, I feel like it still gave me a lot of skills and diversity in how I approach a lot of things, especially in research. And it helped me build a portfolio, which, by the way, make sure you start building a portfolio that I am now sending off to jobs.
I would say first, like, learn how to write. That's like an awesome foundation to have for anything you do. I would say also lean on the great people here. I had an awesome advisor in Dr. Gullifer. I had an awesome advisor in the Smith Career Center, and Kim Dunn. So great to see you, by the way. And I leaned on those people so much, and they were extremely helpful for me. But Nicole nailed it, like, do everything. Like, genuinely, this place has so much to offer that you just have no idea when you first start. You have, like, all these big career fairs and all these fairs and everything when you get here as a freshman, and you think there's, like, man, there's, like, too much going on. But genuinely try everything, because I didn't know if I wanted to go into TV. I didn't know if I wanted to go into radio. I didn't know if I wanted to write, be a reporter. And, you know, I tried all those things, and it eventually led to where I am today. So you just have no idea. And try everything, but do it when you first get here. And just enjoy that process of starting out, because, like, that is where, like, you have the most fun.
Kind of similar, just get your reps in. If you're in high school, join the speech team. That's kind of how I learned to find my own voice and learn the power of spoken word. As corny as that might sound, that's really how I got interested in journalism. And if you're at Bradley right now, do Braves Vision, write for the Scout, you know, I forgot the radio stuff that we do here, what that was called, but do all of that and just get as much experience as you can doing whatever you think you might be interested in.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. This would be short answer essay question. At the end of my workday, I've been successful when? What makes a successful workday? Starting with Hernan and heading that direction.
That's a hard question, man. I mean, you can't really go wrong as long as you didn't swear on live TV. You know, like, you know, as long as you didn't, you know, burn down the Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Like, there's really a low bar for success. No, but I mean, just being able to, you know, accurately and, you know, concisely get the word out about whatever you're covering, and that might look different every day. Now the news industry is focusing a lot more on social media, as it should, because that's just kind of where things are going, how people consume content. But if you make an impact on one reader, on one watcher, I think that's enough to constitute a successful day.
All right, excellent. Here.
I would say so much of what I do is out of my control. I can't control the winds. I can't control a lot whatever happens on the court. The ball's going to get tipped at 7 o'clock most nights anyway, and that's like those are the guarantees. But a lot of what I do is you know, helping people and helping our media members, and so a successful night for me is if I can go home and say, you know, I was able to help. You know, if it's just one person that night, awesome. If it's multiple people, that's even better. And if we win, that's a nice little kind of cherry on top, but again, like I can't control that. So a successful night for me, when I get home from work, is, you know, making sure I was able to at least just help one media member, one staff member, you know, whatever it is, just get whatever they need.
Okay. So short answer is every time I get to check one thing off of my Canvas list, like, oh yeah, that assignment done, then I feel successful. But the longer answer would probably have to be my advisor. She says, you know what you know. And so I feel like that is something I'm starting to go by, is I ask myself, like, did I put in my best effort today? Did I put my best into this exam that I did? I know what I know. I put in what I knew. And at the end of the day, whatever I get, I just know that that's the grade that I not only deserve, but I know that I earned because I worked hard for it.
So within tickets, there's 1 to 2 days. If it's on a game day perspective, it's just making sure that folks were able to get into the facility with no issues. Sales went smooth. Our student workers were able to execute on the highest level that they're able to. They know what they're doing. None of our tech had any failures. Outside of that, whatever happens on the court is, like what Aaron said, it's out of our control. But what we have within our control on a game day perspective, making sure that that entire process goes smooth, we don't have any issues, and if there are issues, just troubleshooting on the fly. And then just like on a regular day-to-day perspective, reaching out to folks, say that there was somebody who the last couple weeks has been trying to figure out, like trying to get a group out there, calling them. If we get that secured, awesome. If not, it's just making sure that we have that line of communication to know, hey, if you still are interested, just let us know. And if not, then we can get you out here for a different game. And then from a like graduate student perspective, just like what Nicole said, just being able to mark off another assignment off my canvas, or just knowing that, hey, I was able to go into this class, come out with some good notes, and now I feel prepared for the next class.
I would say a win is avoiding getting like canceled or harassed on the internet. But I would say like game day wise, like capitalizing on like opportunities that happen. So like maybe you get a cool moment in the tunnel, or like just making sure like someone has a triple double, like getting that like locker room celebration, things like that. So just making sure I'm getting those like special pieces or behind the scenes things that not everyone gets to see. Like that's a good day to me when we can get cool content like that no one else has.
Thank you. Now, if it'd be okay, I would like to open questions up to the audience. If you have a question, and I know you have awesome questions for our panelists, if you would please, raise your hand. We'll call on you. Stand up because we don't have you mic'd. Please speak very loudly. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're studying, and then if you have a question for the whole panel, let us know that, or a specific panelist, let us know that as well. I'm going to stop talking so you all can start. Who's got a question? Yes. Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, hi there, and welcome back. So I'm actually Grace. I'm a faculty here. I do have a question for some of you. I see mostly in content creation part. So for example, social media, PR, and journalism. As a faculty, I wonder, do you start to see any impact, or do you start to feel any impact of generative AI, ChatGPT, whatever, based on this AI-based sort of models, start to impact your work? And also, as a faculty, we are preparing, we are training our next generation. I thought to see if you have any thoughts to share, particularly regarding the topic of generative AI. That's it. Thank you.
Good question. I always joke that like ChatGPT is coming for my job because I like pride myself on copywriting, and that's one of like the main things I do. But I also think ChatGPT can't read a room or like kind of get the context or tonality of things. So like those are things you can't think about, or like you don't have like the human emotion behind it to think about. So I'd like to think my job is safe in that regard. But yeah, it's definitely something like you think about. I don't see it as like a quick threat, but I do think seeing what ends up happening in the next 3 to 5 years, like will it be regulated at all? Are we just gonna let it do its thing? Like that sort of thing is an interesting topic, but I think so far I feel pretty good. I'm safe with it, but I have heard like a lot of like students or like younger generation is using it a lot more. I feel like reading something, I'd probably be able to pick it up pretty quickly, as I'm sure professors also do. So I think I would use it maybe as like a thought starter, but not use it as like a full, like you're just copying and pasting is what I would say.
I would say from the PR standpoint, it's not necessarily affected like sports PR a whole lot just yet. I don't think like AI or ChatGPT could like write a press release for our team. I like we have certain like way of how we write things, and I just don't think that it would do that justice. I would say I can see it affecting the people I work with. I could see it affecting the journalists and people that and our writers that we work with, who are, working and fighting with their unions right now on that side of things. So I don't think it affects us like right now and what I do on a daily basis, but I can see it affecting other people that I work with.
From the press side of things, it is going to be interesting, but I think from a local level, it's going to be a while before it really has a main impact, at least on the writing side of things. I have done, just kind of out of curiosity, have tried to use ChatGPT after the fact, after I've written a story, to see how it would take, you know, the base information, and it can't, in terms of a broadcast story, it can't really piece out something like that, especially if it's something on a city council agenda that is not across the internet. It can't really take that yet. In terms of like the human interaction, kind of like what Megan said, especially in morning news, people like that interaction. They like that authenticity between, you know, a reporter and whoever is doing the interview. They like those real moments, and I think even now in the age of like TikTok or Reels, we see all of these like man on the street videos, or, you know, barbers interviewing people that they're lining up or whatever. And I think there's still going to be a place for that real human interaction that AI won't be able to replace.
Joe, Nicole?
I mean, from our perspective, there's not really a ton of like AI integration with ticketing itself. I know that within just the athletics department itself, there's, whenever we were trying to like figure out a new name for our student organization, or for like our student fan section, we use ChatGPT to like kind of think of some ideas. So like from like maybe a promotional standpoint, there's integration with it in the sense of just like trying to come up with new ideas, but within like a ticketing realm, it's not something that we've really kind of run into yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much in the way of AI from like the research standpoint. It's definitely an area that should probably be touched on in the next couple of years. I'm sure will happen. So if anybody wants to start research, that's a really good topic to get into if that's something you're interested in. From a teacher standpoint, I know that it's something that a lot of us are starting to see. People are starting to use ChatGPT to do all of their references, to write their speeches. I personally haven't had any students of mine use ChatGPT or any sort of AI on any of their assignments that I know of. So it hasn't really impacted in that sense, but I know that it is starting to.
Thank you. Next question. Yes.
I'm Kelly Mills. I'm a teacher at Richwoods High School. I feel like I'm very loud. Am I? Okay. I would have a huge conflict. You said you're going to St. Louis Cardinals. Well, obviously I'm a Cubs fan because I'm cool. So I would have a hard time going to that, and that made me think, with all of you that are going to sports teams, what if you hated the Sparks? What if you're like, no, it doesn't spark me, I don't like it. Like, do you take that job? Does it conflict? Do you grow to love that team instead of the team you grew up with? I don't know how my in-laws would deal with this. If this was like a Packers-Bears thing.
Yeah, I think if I can jump on that real quick, I think you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the work versus like what you're like promoting. So say like whenever I was in undergrad, I worked an internship with the Cardinals from like an event standpoint, like an usher, and just helping people throughout the stadium. There were a handful of folks that just loved the Cubs, but they were able to, they kind of took in a realm that this is the job that I'm working right now, and I'm taking myself out of the just like personal things that I have, like what I feel, and just being able to still execute in the like realm and in the like work that I love. So in the sense of like, I love being able to work within ticketing to get folks into the stadium and make sure that they have a good time. And even though it could be something in the sense that like, I don't feel that like growing up personally, I didn't love this team, but I'm still able to execute in the stuff and in the like kind of purpose that I have within sports. I'm still able to execute on that. Hey, I was able to get these folks in there that just had a great time.
What happens when they play the Cardinals, your team?
It's a good thing I'm going to St. Louis.
Oh, because you like them?
Oh, I was born from St. Louis area, born and raised.
I would say, from my perspective, I have like certain teams that I'm like, I just won't touch. So I'm a diehard Cubs fan also. So I will not like play for the Cardinals. And I also, I say like the Cubs are like my go-to team, my favorite. Like I won't work for them because I don't want to ruin that experience of like fandom. So like Not that they're probably a great organization, I don't know, but when you work for an organization, you find out all of the like maybe not so great parts of it. And I'm like, I don't want to ruin the dream. I just want to go to Wrigley and have like a beer and a hot dog and call it a day. So I keep it separate like that. But then the other instance is like I grew up in Chicagoland area. I grew up a Bulls fan. Then I went to the Bucks, and it was like they decided to start having beef when I started working there, and like that was very difficult to manage because I was like, I'm with this Bucks team every single day. They're such a lovable team. They're so fun. Like I became such a fan of them, and then I was like, but my Bulls are like my hometown team. So it was like a little conflicting, but again, at the end of the day, it's a job. You're gonna like root for good people at the end of the day, and it becomes less about the team and more about like the people you're representing.
Yeah, I would say it probably would piss my dad off more than anyone if I like worked for like the Vikings, but honestly, kind of Megan hit on it. The like once you start working in the industry, the fandom part probably goes away a little bit. I still love the NBA, and I still love like I grew up a huge Bulls fan, but you know I think I could work in any of the local Chicago teams and still be able to separate myself. I think that's like another big thing is like as you kind of grow up in the industry, you know it's a job, and like and yes, I've noted a million times I get paid to watch basketball, and it's a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, like Megan mentioned, it's a job, and you know it's real life things, and we just kind of have to separate yourself from that, and so you just kind of grow to accept that, and unfortunately, it is what it is.
From my side of things, since I covered sports more as news instead of sports, the highlights themselves, I really don't run into that. It's cool to be able to be behind the scenes of some of the stadiums or fields, but I've never really had to run into that, thankfully. So.
Because your favorite NASCAR driver always wins in Indianapolis?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I know nothing about the Indy 500, but everyone tells me like once May comes around, I'm going to be the biggest racing fan.
Yeah.
It always happens in the first years.
Get out your Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
We're on some races.
I will say one quick thing going back to that is like you can still have the little bits of like fandom and joy, like being able to like whenever we play the Bulls, like I get to sit right on the scores table, and I'm like literally almost feet on the floor, and so like 10-year-old Aaron is like super excited and like giddy about doing that, and so I could still have those little moments, like even now like 7.5 years in, I can like every time we go there, it's still an exciting moment for me. So as long as I don't lose that, I think I'm good. So.
All right, speed round. We have time for one question. Yes, right there.
My name is Stephanie. I'm a journalism major, and I'm a local girl here. My question is do you guys ever do any tasks outside of the sports realm, or do you enjoy doing tasks outside of the sports realm of journalism?
I will take that, I guess. Yeah, I have really learned to love politics. I've always been interested in political journalism, but being just a general assignment reporter in Iowa was a really good place for me to start learning how to report for harder news. I think that there will always be a place for local journalism because it matters, and it has the ability to change elections, even though that's not our goal. Being able to have that impact and inform voters is something that I think is really important, and I wouldn't say my favorite part of the job, but definitely makes me hold myself a little bit with a little bit more purpose, if that makes sense.
Anyone else? Charlie, last one. Let's go.
Charlie Dixon. I'm from England. I'm a sports comm major here. I'll be interested to know, how do you keep your distance between being professional in your occupation and then having enjoyment as well?
Yeah, I could take that one. It's really hard, like when you first start, because, like, again, it is like super exciting, and but again, you kind of get thrown, once you get kind of thrown into the fire of it, and you do realize, yes, this is a job, and yes, I have certain tasks I need to accomplish and get done. I'm a big like write all my things that I need to get done that day type of person. So it kind of just, like, you don't even realize, like, you don't even, like, the fandom and it separates itself. I will say, kind of, I don't know if you're asking this part of it, but I'll go there, is the separation between staying professional with our players and coaches is also kind of a tightrope act as well. There's a line, obviously, with our players and our coaches that we don't really cross. We are around them, 24/7, almost 365, and so you spend a lot of time together. There's just being able to, be professional, but at the end of the day, you need them to do things. They also need us at times. So making sure there's that line and that barrier, and understanding that, yes, I have a job to do, you have a job to do, type of deal. So I don't know if you were necessarily asking that part of it, but that's another part of it that's super important to what I do and kind of on a daily basis.
I would say for myself, I compartmentalize. That's my thing. So obviously, when I have my phone out and on the court and shooting guys walking in and warm-ups, all of that, it's this is my job. This is what I'm focused on right now. And then or if I'm doing something cool and it's after the event, then I'm oh shit, that was great. That was really fun, really cool experience. I got to meet people that I wouldn't necessarily meet or do. And so I just kind of separate it in that way, which I think helps a lot of just because it's okay to celebrate your wins, but I just think in the moment and there, you have to be professional. You have to stay even keeled and just be oh yeah, it's a normal day. But then you just celebrate it after, or you text a group chat and you're yo, I just met this person, it was cool, kind of great. So those would be my recommendations there.
I'm sorry, I've got to stop because I know some students have to get to classes and we have another panel that's going to be setting up, but I know that questions can be asked offline, off stage for our guests. A couple of times we've talked, and just the last question, how do you separate that fandom, and so forth from your job? Right now, I am having an extraordinarily hard time separating my fandom from these individuals on this panel. Every one of them is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Would anyone not change places with them? Graduate school, major markets, championship rings, for crying out loud. But here's what I will say. When we think about folks who are on this panel or on the other panels that we're going to see here today at the Steiner Symposium, we consider these people to be successes. I will say, though, that when we reached out to every one of these panelists, every one of these alums, and we said, hey, would you come back and would you talk to our students? Would you talk to our prospective students, high schoolers from the area? They didn't hesitate. Immediately they said, yes, I'd love to come back, whether they were 2 years out or 9 years out. In my book, that is the greatest mark of your character and success as who you are, regardless of what you do in your careers. So to Megan and Joe and Nicole and Aaron and Hernan, thank you so much. That's going to wrap up this particular panel. Next panel starts at 10:30. So if you have questions, you want autographs for our guests and so forth, we'll do that.